says the idea that we are succeeding in Iraq is part of what he calls a, quote, blizzard of lies that we have gotten recently from this administration. Mark Thiessen is a former presidential speechwriter, Washington Post columnist, and an American Enterprise Institute fellow. So they maintain that we're looking at success right now.
Yeah. Megan, do you remember Baghdad Bob, the Iraqi information minister who kept just saying Saddam Hussein's forces were succeeding and the Americans were nowhere near Baghdad? Well, Josh Earnest sounded a lot like Baghdad Bob today. I mean, the ISIL is 15 miles from the Iraqi airport. They're advancing towards the capital. They're about to take over Anbar province, and the White House spokesman is standing from the podium and saying, we're succeeding. We're succeeding. And, this is not the first time this has happened. I mean, President Obama was actually a little bit more honest in his statement. This is the same guy who said, we have a strategy in Iraq, when President Obama a few days later came out and said, we don't have a strategy in Iraq. So there's this serial dishonesty that's happening. If we were succeeding, ISIS would be retreating, not advancing. So no serious person thinks that we're succeeding. Why does the White House spokesman go out and say we're succeeding? It's not necessary.
The president seems to be relying on the fact that we have this long-term strategy, and that involves sending the Syrians out of Syria to go get trained in Saudi Arabia, and then in a year they're going to come back to Syria. Then they're going to be this fighting force, and I don't know what's going to happen with the Iraqi army. Somehow they're going to keep their uniforms on and not put their guns down and run. And this is what's going to happen in the long term, i.e. when Barack Obama has left office, and then things are really going to come together.
Well, of course, the generals have said that the strategy is insufficient, that we need boots on the ground, and he's rejected that advice. So now he owns the results that are happening on the ground. And, of course, in any military campaign, there are going to be days of setbacks and days of success, and that's normal. But you don't go out when they almost took the Baghdad airport and the next day say we're succeeding. It's just when people see the White House press secretary say one thing at the podium and in a split screen on television see ISIS advancing on the Baghdad airport or blowing up Kobani and taking towns, they look at that and they say these people can't be honest about anything.
We are being misled. It's not the first time that we've had serious honesty questions with this White House and this president.
No, it's not at all. I mean, look, just last week we found out that they were lying when they said that there was no indication that anyone in the White House travel office did anything wrong in Cartagena. They said that there's not a smidgen of corruption at the IRS. No one edited the Benghazi talking points. No one's going to lose their doctor or their health care plan. I mean, it goes on. And now we're hearing that we have success in Iraq when ISIS is advancing.
I don't know if this is even relevant anymore, Mark. You tell me. But, once again, we talked about last week on the program how 53% of the American people now believe that this is a failed presidency. 53% now believe it's a failed presidency. Now, granted, the presidency it's not over. And President Bush had low numbers that rebounded once he left office. But that's how many are saying that now. And, again, I don't know if this is relevant, but you look back, you tell me, at then candidate Obama and what he promised he was going to bring to the job and the office and how his White House would be different. Here's a sample.
The time has come for a president who will be honest about the choices and the challenges we face, who will listen to you and learn from you even when we disagree, who won't just tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to know.
What the American people are looking for right now is straight answers to tough questions.
I mean, are we getting that, even arguably?
We're not even close to getting straight answers. We're getting spin and lies, a blizzard of lies from this administration. Britt was on earlier, and he was saying about how Americans are very forgiving of mistakes if the president owns up to them. And I think that's absolutely right. What they're less forgiving of is dishonesty, and in particular serial dishonesty. Because when you lose your approval rating come and go, they rise and fall with what's happening in the world. But if the president is honest with the American people, and it admits when he's making mistakes and how he's changing his strategy, people will rally around him.
It would give him more credibility, not less credibility. Yeah. It would give him more credibility.
Exactly. I mean, if Barack Obama had come out when he announced the strategy in Iraq and said, look, our strategy was mistaken. I, President Obama, underestimated the threat, and we didn't take the next steps necessary, but now we have a new strategy, and here's why it's going to work, people would say, okay, that's fair. Well, let's give him a chance. But instead he says, this is a continuation of our strategy. It's succeeding. We're doing everything right. And people see something else on their screens. They think these people are not being upfront with us. And when you lose trust, it's very hard to get it back.
especially on a matter of national security, where people are worried about
Absolutely.
themselves and their families. Mark, good to see you.
Thanks, Megyn.
Well,